You know what that means. It's time for Marvel in the 90s. And tonight we're talking about Rob Liefeld on New Mutants. In particular, we're going to be talking mostly about issue 87 through, I think it's 94. Let me double check real quick. Pretty sure it's 94. Da 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 da. He's loving it. Walking down the street. Yes. Pretty much 87 through 94. There's one issue that Rob Liefeld did not do the artwork in. We're not going to be talking about that one. But what I want to focus on is the introduction by Rob Liefeld and Louise Simonson of Cable to readers, to the Marvel Universe, and to the New Mutants in particular. So let's get into it. So first of all, we kick off. There's like this whole like bit, by the way, at the end of 86, which is Rob Liefeld's first issue. It's like the Vulture and Nitro versus a couple of New Mutants. They get kidnapped by the Mutant Liberation Front. And then there's Freedom Force, whatever. This is the Mutant Liberation Front. We're introduced to these really dumbass characters, okay? But what I'm trying to focus on is what was it that made Rob Liefeld a success at this time? Because at this time in reading comics, I did not dig on Rob Liefeld, okay? And I never read this stuff. So this is my first time ever reading New Mutants 87 and 88, 89 onwards and all that shit, right? And I rather enjoyed it, and I did find a lot to appreciate in his artwork. This, to me, is very dynamic, even though these characters are dumb as shit. And the designs are stupid as hell. That's got a Kirby quality to me. And that's what I like. Okay, so then we got Cable, and he's fighting the Mutant Liberation Front. He knows who they are, and he's going up against them. Rob did some really cool like layouts and panel design and composition. It's not bad in these days. This is Strife. Now look at this page. This is something that you see still today. That side anchor there on the page. This was something that those guys, those Image founders in particular, were doing at the time, and it was very different from the comic books that were produced in the decades before. Strife, to me, especially in like 1990, absolutely had like one of the coolest fucking costumes. It was like Super Shredder chromed out on steroids, man. I absolutely loved it. Super Shredder, the action figure, was kind of tiny, right? Anyway, so you got the Mutant Liberation Front. They're running around. Cable's trying to fight them, but jokes on Cable. That's actually a really badass dynamic shot. No, not everything is perfect. Look at those guns. Look at the angle. The perspective on some of them's kind of off. The backgrounds just being these weird shapes. That's something Rob Liefeld was doing back in those days, but there is an energy to this that really works for me. So Cable winds up getting captured, not by the Mutant Liberation Front, by the way. And this is Bob Wyasek, I believe, inking on Rob Liefeld here. Later on in this run, we're going to get inking from Hilary Barta, I believe, or maybe it stays Bob, but the inking kind of gets a little bit different. But look at that Cable face. I really freaking like that Cable face. Anyway, he gets captured by Freedom Force. Freedom Force is basically the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, but at the time, they were working for the government. It was the Blob, it was Pyro, and of course, Mystique. Mystique was their leader. There's some really cool, like, shading and uplighting, or downlighting, of course, from Rob Liefeld here. I really like the inking by Bob Wyasek on these books right here. And then Cable just, does his thing and he escapes, So he's being chased by the Freedom Force. He's escaping. He's like, here's something to remember me by. Like I said, we're really focusing in on the dynamic quality. There was something special about what Rob was bringing. It was an energy, right? And it was able to actually come across. His energy was able to come across on the page, even on this dude with this crazy-ass widow's peak and receding hairline. Notice, by the way, that gun is straight up like that first Cable's action figures gun. All right, so he's running, he's hiding. Freedom Force eventually finds him. There's Blob, there's Pyro. They're confronting him, and he's going to kick. By the way, look at them tight-ass pants on Cable, man. This is something Rob Liefeld is known for. Tight-ass jeans on superheroes. And bruh, how in the hell does he kick that shit? How can Cable kick that high into the other panel? That's another cool thing to see, the breaking of the panels. It's got energy, but man, those are some tight-ass pants, man. And they're riding high. They're riding high. Anyway, when he's attacked by these dudes, that's when he meets Boom Boom and Roberto, Sunspot. So that's where he first comes into contact with the New Mutants. There's a lot of other New Mutants drama going on Moira trying to take back Wolf's Bane and Richter freaking out and shit like that. We're just going to skip that because I'm really focusing on the Cable stuff here, man. Okay, so they decide to help Cable. They defend him. That's where he kind of meets up with them. And then later on, we go into the Morlock tunnels. This is after Mutant Massacre. Sabertooth is still down there. This is a really cool... It's actually one of those centerfold type things. I don't have the bottom half for some reason here, but this is a really cool Sabertooth for me by Rob Liefeld. Sabertooth was very slender in these days, which is off-putting today, but in the 80s, that's just how it was. So Sabertooth shows up. He's in the Morlock tunnels. He's killing Morlocks still. And Richter, by the way, has some problems with Cable because there's this thing going on in here where some people know Cable. Like Moira McTaggart already knows him. Richter apparently knows him. He's responsible for the death of his father. He's kind of freaking out, not really trusting him. But all the other New Mutants are like immediately trusting Cable. Like they just think he's badass. Meanwhile, Caliban's running through the Morlock tunnels and sees Morlocks that have been slaughtered by Sabertooth. And Sabertooth is there just ready, wanting to fight Caliban. That's going on. And Richter, who has left... By the way, he freaks out. Cable's like hardcore military training the New Mutants or something. You know, Xavier's mansion is destroyed. The X-Men are out of country. They have no leader. They're directionless at this point. And Cable steps in as this militaristic leader, starts training them. Richter is like, yo, I'm gonna go prove myself and clear out these killings in the Morlock tunnels, right? And he winds up in the middle of all this shit with Caliban and Sabertooth. And there's some really cool artwork here, man. The reactions are super over-expressive, overly rendered at times with the inking. That was something that was just done, and that comes from the inherent pencils underneath that line work. So anyway, to go and save Richter, because he's disappeared, he's in the Morlock tunnels, Cable, with his New Mutants, go on their first mission to save Richter, and he's right in the middle of the Sabertooth Caliban shit. Artwork, dynamic. Love this. It looks more like Wild Child, though. Doesn't it? He's really lanky. He was lanky in this time, though he did beef up in the early 90s. Cable and the New Mutants are after him. They get in the middle of all that shit. Wolfsbane's like, yo, because she was dating Richter at this time. This is before Richter realized his sexual identity. And some really great dynamic stuff. You can see here, like, Extinction Agenda comes after this run that we're going to talk about, and Wolfsbane's taken off the table. And Feral gets introduced, and we'll get to all of that stuff. But you can definitely tell that Rob Liefeld likes the were-girl, or were-woman, if you will. So they're fighting along. Boom Boom's, like, I have always loved Boom Boom. She was in some X-Factor issues I read back in the day, and I always thought she was the best, man. And so I like them fighting. They're trying to help out. Richter then unlocks his new level of power. He's able to shake, rattle, and roll. This kind of replicates, you know, in the action figure where you would wind him up and he would just vibrate. It was pretty interesting, right? So then they come up against the new Morlocks with their new leader, Mask, and they basically get caught in the middle, and they're like, let Sabertooth and Caliban have it out. And Caliban, like, breaks Sabertooth's back and, like, kills the fuck out of him. And you're led to believe that Sabertooth is dead. You know, spoilers, he gets better. And but that's pretty cool. Then all of a sudden, they're in Madripoor on a mission, and they've been betrayed, and Cable's like yelling, this is the next issue, and like, what's going on? And they're finally going up against Strife again in the MLF, though we don't see most of those Dudsy kind of characters. But Strife is in Madripoor. He's got this, like, poison that he's trying to poison the supply of Tokyo, the water supply of Tokyo, to drive people mad, and he's got this, like, he's trying to end humanity, right? We don't know anything about Strife yet. We don't know anything about Cable yet, at all. But this is finally the moment where Cable gets to confront Strife. But before that, he has to have a misunderstanding of sorts with Wolverine. That's right, there's a Rob Liefeld Wolverine, it's great. Yeah, man, those claws are ridiculous, and they get longer than his arms as we go along. And look at them damn legs. Rob likes him some legs and crotch shots. But I still think it's a rather cool fun, but, you know, take your attention away from that Wolverine. Look at that Sunspot. Sunspot looks very cool. Beautifully rendered, in my opinion. So then you get this gratuitous fight between Wolverine and Cable, and Wolverine knows Cable. They have a history. And so, like, you as the reader, like, first time, right? Like, I like the character of Cable, but I've never read this early stuff, so when I started liking Cable, I already knew about the Nathan Summers thing, right? You don't know about this aspect yet. You don't know about the techno-organic virus. The creators, Rob Liefeld, Rob and Weezy probably didn't fucking know about it. Anyway, you get this badass fight, honestly, between Cable and Wolverine that lasts like half this fucking issue. And it's pretty freaking cool. There's some really cool... Hit the wrong button. So now we're going to have to go through real quick, recap, rewind. Too many slides for this, man. What a mistake, Robbie. Look at Wolverine's claws there. Those are longer than his fucking arm. That's pretty dope, though, in my opinion. So I actually think there's some cool shots here of Wolverine and Cable as they're fighting, but it is a really long fight. And, like, meanwhile, the New Mutants are, like, that are split away from Cable, they're actually fighting the fight against Strife and figuring out the whole plot of the shit. But we're focusing in on Cable, right? So him and Wolverine have this fight, and like I said, they knew each other, and then they get interrupted and busted up by the other New Mutants that are with Cable. Turns out that they were just kind of play fighting. There's still a score to settle, but they were just kind of playing around. Meanwhile, like, Tokyo's about to die, and they're just, like, goofing around. Anyway, Wolverine decides to help him out because he's after the same kind of plot. He's figuring out what's going on. He realizes it's Strife, the leader of this new Mutant Liberation Front. By the way, look at them claws, man. How long are them damn claws? That's ridiculous, but it's fun as well. So Cable finally gets to fight Strife. We still don't know anything about their connection, but they have this battle, and Cable actually kind of gets the upper hand. But he gets pulled out, along with Wolverine, by Cannonball and saved. By the way, Sunfire's there to help him out because they're in Japan. They went from Madripoor to Japan, I think, is how it worked, right? But they get pulled away. Strife allegedly gets blown up. Cable's like, yeah, I don't think so. But look at that. I think it's cool. I think Cable's introduction by Rob Liefeld was actually pretty freaking solid. I think it works. There's a dynamic quality. I've said that word a lot tonight, but there's this energy. There's a Kirby inspiration. You can really see it in creators like Eric Larson, but you see it in Rob Liefeld, especially this time. Now, I keep talking about cartoonist kayfabe because they're my new YouTube obsession, have been for a few months. But they talk about the best period of Rob Liefeld being some of the, like, 10 or 15 issues from New Mutants into X-Force, maybe early Youngblood. And this is really cool, solid stuff. I love the stuff that's illustrated by Bob Wyasek. So this is what I read it in. This is an old school Cable and the New Mutants trade paperback. So what it contains is New Mutants 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 93, and 94. It skips 92, which does not have Rob Liefeld artwork. It does have a pinup in the back, though. It skips most of the first issue, 86. It only has the tail end that has the cameo of the of Cable. And in 87, it only has the Cable-centric stuff. But it's cool because I like this old reprint of it because it's not necessarily on newsprint, but it still works. By the way, when I say I like Boom Boom and I loved Boom Boom from back in the day, I mean, come on. She's like, basically Jubilee took her place, like, honestly, but I am a Boom Boom. Pop, pop, boom, boom. You know what I'm saying? I mean, honestly. Boom Boom can get it, man. So can Cable. Look at them guns, if you know what I mean. But it's not necessarily newsprint, but it's still, I think it's a better paper to read it on. And I'm wearing my kayfabe influence on my sleeve. But I like the story. I thought it was cool. It was interesting to dive in and see, like, some of the dynamic qualities of not early Rob Liefeld work, but, like, when he was really popping, when he was making a name for himself, right? And I know people that are huge Rob Liefeld fans. I've never necessarily been a fan. Excuse me. But I am becoming a fan. And this isn't just a flip of the script kind of thing, like all of a sudden, like, yo, I'm going to change a paradigm. I'm going to be a Spawn fan. I'm going to try to read Spawn and appreciate what the best of it. I'm looking at this. The story gets a little dry. Louise Simonson, Wheezy, I think this is the last stuff she does for New Mutants. Rob was brought in because he was a rising talent. New Mutants was at the bottom of the totem pole with the X-Men as far as sales go. So they brought in Rob. Rob says they offered him this or X Factor. And they gave him, and he decided he wanted to do this. And he really built it up. And he said he didn't want to follow Walt Simonson's work. But I mean, I liked it. I thought it was good. By the end, the inking gets a little off-put, and his storytelling doesn't quite match up with the dialogue. But you also feel like Wheezy was on her way out. I think she does the scripting in the Extinction Agenda tie-ins. But after that, Fabian jumps in and Rob's plotting it. So I love this cover. It's got a little bit of a foil sheen to it. It's old. It's beat up. This print came out. This trade came out in, let's see, 1992. So like right after this shit, pretty much. But I liked it. I liked it a lot. I'm starting to appreciate Rob Liefeld a little bit more. No, not everything he does, especially from a point onward, is great. But there's something about it still. And I did become quite of a little bit of a Rob Liefeld fan when the Captain America run was going. Because as like a, what was that, 96? So me, as like a 15-year-old, I was all in on Heroes Reborn. But that being said, I like Rob Liefeld's introduction, along with Wheezy, of Cable to the New Mutants, to the Marvel Universe, and to the readers at large. I thought it was pretty solid. It was interesting, and I'm excited to continue along into the journey. We've already done X-Force #1, but you know we got to do the first appearance of Deadpool. We got to do the New Mutants #100. We're going to be talking about all that stuff here pretty soon. So just pay attention to this space. And that was your edition tonight of Marvel in a 90.